NTD, depression, we all know there's something deeper to it. If you've had this, if you've dealt with it, there's something deeper to it than just the biochemical dealing with the serotonin that they say is out of whack. There's more to this. And I want to talk about a side that's not touched on that often, and that's the energetic side of depression, as understood by traditional Chinese medicine. First off, and from that standpoint, we can look at different ways of dealing with depression, reducing depression that isn't just about taking a drug or getting therapy, but ways that can target the energy factor in, because just on a surface level, depression is associated with low energy levels. People with depression often feel very low energy, feel fatigued, and just lack mental energy. So there is a definite energy component to it. First of all, what is the energy that we're talking about? We know this energy that TCM talks about, traditional Chinese medicine, it is established, it's known, and it's accepted in Western medicine. Case in point being, I spoke to Dr. Joseph Audet, who's an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School, and he was saying that the US Air Force is so convinced in the existence of energy that they've developed battlefield acupuncture. And there you have, in terms of acupuncture, the success of this, the wide application of this, a very compelling argument for the existence of energy and the fact that it can be controlled and regulated to bring health. In the Air Force, they're not sticking needles into people in the battlefield, but they have these things that are like earrings. People put them in their ears, and it's for pain relief. Because servicemen suffer with opiate addiction. If they use this for battlefield injuries, and then they can't get off them. So the Air Force researched this and found this as a solution, and is now employing that to some degree of success. The idea, it's interesting that pain, obviously, looking at that scenario, pain is an energy flow situation. Another doctor I spoke to is Dr. Jingduan Yang, who's a TCM doctor, a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and really bridging not just TCM, but also psychiatry. He's a board-certified psychiatrist. He's also practiced neurology, and he's an integrative medicine doctor, so he's really working at the intersection of all these different modalities in medicine. So he was the one I wanted to speak to about how does energy, this idea of energy is understood in TCM, how does that factor into dealing with mental health issues and easing depression? He spoke to me initially about the fact that it's not just chi energy, there's different types of energy in the body, right? There's, depending, for one, in terms of which kind of organ you're talking about, the spleen, there's energy of the spleen, which is very important to mental health, energy of the heart, energy of the lungs, energy of the liver. And these aren't the same organs that we talk about in Western medicine. The spleen discussed in traditional Chinese medicine, this is not the same as the spleen anatomically of Western medicine. This has more to do with the function of the organ, of function in that area. And the energy is an integral part of that. Interestingly, when we're talking about the spleen in traditional Chinese medicine, this is associated very much with the immune health. And this almost ties into what's understood increasingly in Western medicine about the role of the gut as being so important, because 80% of the immunity is located in the gut, and the gut health is being increasingly linked to brain health. So the spleen fits into depression because when you have a blockage in this area, the emotion associated with the spleen, interestingly, are worry, negative emotions, obsessive thinking. If you're looking at another organ like the liver, for example, this is associated with rage, with frustration. One thing that Dr. Young pointed out to me is if you want to hurt someone physically, you hit them. If you want to hurt someone chemically, you give them poison. But if you want to hurt someone energetically, and they're sensitive in a particular respect, you just need to say something insulting to them, something that hits on a particular sensitivity that they have, and you can block their energy. And if you say something that it triggers a certain emotion, like triggers negative thoughts about the self, obsessive thoughts, worrying thoughts, then that would, from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, affect the energy of the spleen, causing a potential blockage in that area. How do we deal with that kind of problem? The main point that I want to get to, well, the first thing that Dr. Young said to me is, he mentioned meditation. And my own experience, my own validation of the fact that energy plays a part in our mental health as well as our physical health. As a younger man, I used to have considerable trouble getting to sleep at night. until I found that just by sitting there, and I would, be studying hard, working hard throughout the day, and I found just by sitting there quietly at nighttime, sitting in my chair, giving myself just a few minutes to relax, lo and behold, I'd feel this kind of energy flow at the top of my head, and my body would ease some of its tension, and I would sleep that night much better than I had the previous nights. So that was some compelling evidence to me that there was something to meditation, and I wasn't even doing it at any level of depth. But that was what Dr. Young identified. Meditation is also linked. If you look at where does meditation come from? It's tied to these spiritual traditions like the Buddhist tradition, the Taoist tradition, which had these practices where people would meditate. They'd go off into the mountains, go off into monasteries. They'd meditate to raise their consciousnesses and enlighten. And with these kinds of traditional spiritual practices comes this cultivation of an optimistic worldview, a positive perspective. And if you're going out with that into society, that's got to help your relationships with people. I asked Dr. Young if doing something like meditation, if that is going to ease up your energy flow, potentially unblock energy flows, and that can have a positive effect on your relationships, reducing the kind of triggering of emotions like rage, uh, or emotions like negative self-thinking, worrying thoughts, obsessive thoughts. Then is the reverse of that true? If we are able to have good relationships with people, is that also going to ease the energy flow of our virtual various energy channels? Perhaps it's something you want to experiment with yourself, but there are definitely ways beyond taking selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are largely being shown that this is being questioned increasingly, the model that this is the cause of depression. And we know they don't work for that many people. So there is hope. There are other approaches, even if therapy isn't being that effective for you. There are other things to look into, and TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, may have some answers. I'm Brendon Fallon, health journalist. Check me out at cvitalscience@gmail.com. Also, I have a new YouTube channel, and I've left the link in the description here. Please go to that. I'm putting all sorts of health videos up on there. Great to be with you.